Hey, so I just wanted to read you this comment that I got. What video was it on? It was on the video I made about allowing it to be easy. I was glad actually that quite a lot of you seemed to sort of understood what I was getting at with that video. You know, like, I didn't get too many of the whiny sort of like, you don't understand, it's so hard comments. I got more of the, yeah, I could have allowed it to be easier comments and people actually kind of calling themselves out on it. And this one is from Kate. Kate said, on the numerous times I've been inpatient, many of the fellow patients made eating their meal plan really difficult, which it could be. However, I often felt that I had to copy their behaviours, cry, move stuff around and round, etc. But I didn't want to. They would get loads of attention from the staff, but the ones who just got on with it never had the attention, possibly giving the impression that eating was a walk in the park. In order to get attention, I would behave in this way, even though it wasn't particularly genuine, in order to get some attention and validation. How crap was that? But I really like that Kate's called herself out on that. I kind of get it as well. I was never an inpatient, so I don't understand that, but I just can imagine that sort of scenario, and when, if you're sort of in recovery but not actually particularly wanting to be an inpatient, probably maybe not even wanting to be in recovery, and everybody around you is just having a meltdown about eating lunch, it would kind of feel like, oh, I've got an eating disorder, so why aren't I having a meltdown? I should be having a meltdown, because apparently that's what people with eating disorders do. And I've heard that so many times from people that have been an inpatient, that they didn't really have a lot of these traits, should we call them, before they went into inpatient, but they picked them all up because they're like, oh, well, this is what we're all supposed to do. And sort of, it's not particularly copying, it's just almost like, I think the feeling of imposter, you're being an imposter if you're not making a big fuss. People think you just don't have an eating disorder, or you're making it up, unless you are shouting and screaming at the dinner table. And so I think it's a really good thing to call yourself out on, and don't let yourself get into that sort of routine, because you know what it's like when you have an eating disorder. We are very sort of routine, and if it's the routine that you have a tantrum at dinner time, you're going to have a tantrum every dinner time. And so a lot of people saying that they had the same thing. And I also, one person says, scooping the sour cream off my chili knowing damn well I wanted to eat it, you know, because people with eating disorders don't like condiments and extras, and definitely not things like sour cream. And so I think that that's one of the many reasons why inpatient facilities are difficult, and they've certainly got their place for keeping people alive, but you can just sort of compound that eating disorder mentality and all the behaviours that go with it, and allowing and making it more difficult than it is. And so what I think anybody watching this has got to do today is notice sort of behavioural responses from yourself to certain situations. So, for example, it could be a response that when your parent or partner says to you, what do you want for dinner? It could be a sort of one of your learned routines that you start squirming, and you start kind of being like, oh, and you won't say what you actually want. You sort of have to skirt around it and make it more difficult by hoping that they suggest whatever it is that you're actually thinking that you want, but you can't suggest it. And so they have to suggest things, and then when they suggest things that aren't what you want, then you just, pout, and you still can't say what you want, but you can't actually, you really want what you want, so you pout some more, and it takes about 3 hours to get down to the bottom of what we're actually having for dinner, just because you couldn't open your mouth and say what you want. That's an example of making everything so much more difficult than it is. And so just watch your learned responses, watch your behaviours. When you catch yourself making something more difficult than it needs to be, stop it. You really can. Just stop it. And take a deep breath, and then take the easy route. Okay? All right, don't often set your homework, but you got it today. All right, bye.